We have an incredible opportunity today, and I'm really excited about it. My friend Randy is a master carpenter, and he contacted me and said he'd like to do a project with me. All that I have to do is design the piece of furniture. So today I'm going to talk about how do you visualize something that's you're going to build yourself and kind of forecast what it'll be like to go through the process. I know a lot of the things that I'm going to decide on aren't necessarily going to work because I'm not the master carpenter, but I'm a visionary, and I figure if we work together, you could maybe do something like this yourself in your home. So give me just a second as I get ready. Much better. I, of course, like to protect my clothes, though we're just going to be using a little ink and pencil. It's still nice to put the uniform on and be ready to go. So follow me. Okay, so the tutorial is going to be a little different today because I wanted to be up close and personal on my work. So most of the tutorial is going to be through my hands and my voice. So let's get started. What I have in order to design a new piece of furniture is this architect scale. This allows me to be very specific with the measurements, and if you look carefully, there's many different scales. There's 3/4 scale, there's 3/8 scale. The way this works, every inch can equal 1 foot, or every 3/32 of an inch can equal 1 foot, or every 1/4 inch can equal 1 foot. So therefore I can draw a piece of furniture this big, but I know that the measurements will translate to real measurements on a tape measure. So if it's a 1 foot chair seat that I'm doing and I draw it to this scale, when someone is reading that architectural drawing, it actually translates to a foot. So scale ruler, real good way to check your measurements and also check how it's going to look in your space. Then I also love to have grid paper because it's a good cheat. I can find right angles better that way, and my rectangles and squares aren't going to be off because I can just align with this nice grid and the right angles that are already in it. I have a couple of pens and a pencil, nothing real fancy. You can certainly get fancy with nicer pens and nicer pencils, but this is really just how are we going to open our creative mind and make some decisions on a piece of furniture that we're going to build. And then I have some scratch paper because for me, I like to sketch out my thoughts and my ideas first and then start paring down to the specifics, especially if I'm designing a piece of furniture. So for this project, again, my friend Randy graciously agreed to teach me, be my mentor as a master carpenter, if I could come up with the plans for what we were going to draw. With full disclosure that I may need to make some adjustments when we go to actually build it because there are things he knows that I don't know, but we'll get to that. So what I like to do first, and I did it before, since we spoke, we decided it would be really fun to do a coffee table that has a desk that pops out because my daughters are in college and in an apartment and study space is at a premium, and if we could make the coffee table have 2 functions, so it'd be so much better. So I took some measurements and I found that their sofa seat is 15 inches from the floor, and that standard coffee tables can run between 13 and 18 inches tall. Well, I have tall daughters, so I want something that is a coffee table, right? And I'd like the center to be the thing that elevates out. Randy has these really cool hinges and they're super strong, so I want to start with simple lines and kind of get the feel for what it is that I want this to do. But I think that if this top elevates, in other words, from the side view, if it could do something like this and become a desk over the sofa, I think they would be pretty happy. That's my daughter studying on her MacBook and studiously learning all the things she needs to learn in college. That would be great. So anyway, So I like to brainstorm a lot, and some of the things that I like to solve early on are, you know, materials. What materials are we going to make this out of? Well, I know that my friend Randy is a great carpenter. So I feel pretty confident and comfortable with choosing wood that is more costly, because I think he will do it right and teach me how to do it right. So my first inspiration really on this particular project was walnut with a combination of maybe maple, I think bird's eye. So this is all part of the creative process, making lists and then going to the sketch. So I'm taking you through my creative process when I'm trying to solve something like this. The other thing that I like to do is kind of do a signature on any piece that I'm involved in that's unexpected. And I'm a huge fan of brass inlay. So I want to try and find a way to inlay some brass into the wood. I know Randy's up to the challenge. We did a giant slingshot that had inlaid aluminum, so I think we're going to be okay with that. Brass, and then the mechanism that Randy has is the hinge. And then the style. I want my style to be relatively simple. Wood grain will be the showpiece or the star of the show, along with the brass. So I want those to be the things that really stand out in this particular piece of furniture. So I've got that ready. Knowing what I know about those measurements that I mentioned earlier, I think I'm going to use the 1 inch equals 1 foot scale. I feel pretty good about that, that I can get what I need. So I'm just going to get an idea. I also measured what was a good width that would be usable for the girls and also allow for 2 shelves to the side when the desk comes up. So I'm thinking maybe about 48, 46 inches, which is 4 feet or a little under 4 feet. So what I do is I just find that first measurement. And then when I'm thinking about width, I probably want to go about 24 inches, 22 inches, just so you can clear it, and their apartment isn't huge, so you don't want to take up all the space. I'm just doing this real quick on this plain paper before I get to the grid, just to kind of get a feel for the look of the top of this table. So if I would like the whole center to lift up as a desk, I want it to be aesthetically pleasing. So I think I'd like maybe a 24-inch desktop. Since this is almost 4 feet, I'm going to find, this is the 1 foot mark, this is the 2 foot, and this is the 3 foot, and then there's the finished 4 foot. So I'm just, again, this is just quick sketch, roughly. There's my desktop, which means the girls will have 12-inch side tables when this elevates and moves up towards the couch, which is super cool. And if we're lucky, depending on the depth of this, I can have some storage for them under it. So that brings me to the side view of this, where this is the, let's line it up. That's another trick. Line up your drawings so that you can really kind of figure out how this works for you. I would think that that desktop would be a thin piece, and then this area right here would be storage. So this dimension is going to be important. I need it to be thin enough to not be massively heavy, because I don't want to make a trunk, I want legs. And I need it thick enough so that there's some amount of storage in here. So keeping that in mind, my ideal height for this would probably run about 7 or 8 inches from very bottom to very top of desk. And then we're going to figure out all these other measurements in between. Now to the legs, what is it that I'm trying to do? I said I want it to be simple. So for me, I want these legs to be super simple. I mean, literally just on the end and they're an afterthought. Ooh, and I like what's happening here. So if you can see, this line continues. So maybe this wood will be the accent wood, and then this will be another color wood. So I like what just happened there. And that's what you do. You brainstorm. So we've got that so far. Now let's take a look at what dimensions would be good for the height. Actually, I'll go back to this drawing. So if we're talking that this is 7 to 8 inches, then this would be 10 inches if I want to do that maximum coffee table height of 18 inches. And I'll find out from Randy what the hinges rise up to make sure the girl's knees will clear. But that's something I can ask him, because this leg height is adjustable. We're just gonna ballpark it, talk to him, and let him advise us when we get there. So let's go ahead and draw this up and then make some nice design decisions. It's really that simple, just planning ahead. Do your sketches, do your drawings, do your measurements, and then get creative with how you're gonna solve it. So let's use this grid paper. Now, as I said, I was gonna do the 1-inch scale, and in this grid, if you look, if you can see it, 4 squares equals an inch, which is awesome, because if I wanna do 46, 48 inches wide on the table, I can come in here and go, let's just do 48 for the sake of argument. And there you have it. And then I wanna do, we said 24 inches for the width, or 22. I'm gonna just do 24 for the ease of getting this drawn. And see, I'm just tracing, I'm finding my marks, and then I'm just tracing using this ruler as my straight edge. I'm just tracing the top footprint of my coffee table. So now I can look at that and say, wow, all right, is that size good? If you want to compare it, you can go to your floor with some tape, painter's tape, and tape this footprint out. Make sure it's going to work for your sofa and your rug and the size of your living room or whatever space you're building in. But I like this a lot because it'll give them a good workspace. So again, going back to the idea that I want a 24-inch top, there's going to be a break in the wood tabletop at these lines. That is for sure, because in order for that desk to elevate, this isn't connected. There's gonna be some sort of a groove, so I wanna keep that in mind. So how can I make the rest of the table from the top aesthetically pleasing? Well, I would really like the accented wood for those end caps to go all the way up and over. So let's say we look at maybe 3 or 4 inches, and that's 3 inches each one of these squares. So I'm gonna do a line here to see what I think of the pattern, just for the sake of argument, and do it on this side too, because what this would amount to is end caps on the top of the table. And I know I talked about brass inlay. Since I'm gonna have stripes here, I don't wanna do any breaks in the surface because it needs to be smooth and easy to work on for my daughters. It won't be just for computers in case they need to do sketches or whatever. So I like what's happening with this striping, and it would be kind of cool if I went thick, thin, and tiny, and sort of just gave it an intentional pattern. So let's try drop in a little line here, not 3 inches. We'll put it on that line right at this point at the 3-inch mark. But I'm thinking that would be the brass line, and I would keep it super skinny. I'll see what I can get at the metal supply, but the brass inlay would be real nice decorative thing for that tabletop. What I plan to do is find a really beautiful bird's eye maple so that this can have a lacy effect on the ends, and then I can just find a beautiful piece of walnut to do this span, and it'll have the groove, and then it'll have the inlay, so that we'll have a nice kind of dark piece of furniture with blonde end caps. So that takes me to what's going to happen on the side. Well, as I said before, it's a good idea to draw the profile right under the plan view or the overhead view, because then you can just line up all your measurements. And since I had said maybe what, 18 inches, then we're looking at, that's 12 and 3, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we're gonna stop it right there. And stop it right there. So here we have the side view of the table. And again, I wanted the legs to be one piece. And don't worry if you go over the line, it's not a big deal. So I'm going to do this leg as one piece. And then we talked about maybe 8 inches for the depth of the tabletop itself. Well, I know that each one of these squares is 3 inches, so I don't even really need to measure. I can estimate here and go 6, 9, go a little under that third line, and that'll give me roughly an 8-inch depth. Then I can line up my tabletop, and I can line up what's going to happen with the brass, which I definitely want to wrap all the way down because I think it'd be pretty from the side. So there's the brass wrapping. What'll happen with the tabletop is this is going to maybe be a solid piece with just the break for the top. So I have to consider how thick does the material have to be structurally sound. Well, my guess, and I'm hoping I'm correct, is 3/4 inches nice and strong. So I have to account for that in the height of my table. All right, so you can see a little closer. So every measurement's going to matter when I'm scaling my drawing. I have to remember that this box that's going to be the tabletop is going to have parameters that we need to deal with. The box itself, if it's 3/4 inches, is no longer an 8-inch. It's not an 8-inch opening inside the box. You have to subtract 3/4 for the top and 3/4 for the bottom, and you're going to get the interior of your box. So in this case, 3/4 and 3/4 is 1.5, so it's a 6.5-inch opening of storage, and I think that would be great. So I'm happy with that. The same goes with anything else that happens. If I'm doing these legs, the interior of the box is not going to be as wide as the 46-inch width of the table. You're going to have to subtract the end caps at 3 inches each, which is 6 inches, so the real tabletop will be 40 inches. It's just good to know, because when you're making a plan, to be aware that what the materials take up has to be subtracted from your actual usable interior space. However, we're going to see what Randy says and how he's going to attach the hinges and what's going to go on inside. I'd love this to be open all the way across so they have lots of storage, but I'm not sure where he would attach the hinges. So that's going to be a question for Randy, and I'm totally comfortable with it. Then, for me, and that's why I have these lovely pens, I like to get a better idea of how my color palette is going to look as a piece of furniture. So if I say to myself, okay, this yellow is going to represent maple, and say this brown is going to represent walnut, I can just do a quick coloring in of my design and see if what I have come up with is aesthetically pleasing to me. So it's a good idea. You can do this with crayons, your kids' crayons, whatever you have in the house. So, and again, as you remember, this is still going to be walnut. I think that we also want this to represent the brass, so I can, it's not going to be exactly the color of the maple, but it's going to give me an idea of what is it that I'm designing here. Do I like the color palette and what's happening? That might be a little bit too golden for what's going to happen. I think this is a closer color to what the brass might look like if it's polished, but as a composition though, let's do this. I'm just going to let it go all the way to its darkness. This walnut, assuming. I prefer to just do a very light or even clear on walnut, because walnut is such a beautiful color. But hey, it's your furniture. You can do what you want to do, but this is how I'm going to solve it, because I think this will go really well in my daughter's apartment. It'll be a little minimalistic and sophisticated. So what we're looking at is this very simple design. Okay. Now what's going to happen with these? Because this is where I want to kind of give the piece of furniture a little personal signature. And I'm going to draw out the end cap, knowing that it's going to be about 24 inches wide. Using my grid, as usual. And it's going to be 18 high. I can use my grid and my straight edge. So that's 12, 15, 18. I can just look and line that up. And there. So that's my tabletop. I know that the top itself is going to be 8 inches. So that's 6. So that's probably around there. And then we have the legs. But I think I want to do something a little bit more interesting, so it's not just a box from all the sides. I think that there's something that I could do to make this more beautiful than to just go straight down. I love hairpin legs, but I decided the only metal I want in this piece is the brass inlay. I don't want to go down that road too. A hairpin leg looks kind of like this. It's very mid-century. Everybody loves them, and when you do it on a coffee table, it's a trend that has come back. But I want to allude to that, but I'd rather take advantage of my friend's amazing skills at woodworking. So I wonder if I kind of, I don't know, alluded to a hairpin, but did it with the actual wood. Would that be something to, which I think it would, which I love. Wow, yeah. I don't know if I want that there, but that could be quite cool. And the W has meaning to my family, which I won't get into, but how cool would that be? Okay, I'm sold. That's easy. I'm gonna see if my friend can pull this off with me. So that would be what the table end looks like. Looks a little Art Deco, which I love, and simple. When the table is up and out, we're gonna have to work on the engineering of that. But so basically, this is my version of how to design a piece of furniture. Take into account where it's gonna be, have some painter's tape off the area in your room, measure it, and does that feel right in the space? And then start growing the piece in your mind. Sketch a lot. Look at materials. There's all sorts of samples out there. You can go to any wood supply store or hardware store and get inspired. You can go online. You can go anywhere to get inspired. Hey, so thanks again for joining me. I hope that this helped, and if you have your own furniture that you would like to design, that some of the steps that I gave you are going to give you a way to do that. And remember, it's really important. This is a process of creativity. It's not going to be perfect the first time. You look at something and you're like, oh, that is just not what I want. Hey, toss it and start again. It's just paper. It's about creativity, and each time you make an amendment on your design, it's going to improve it. So take your time and enjoy it.
blah, 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 blah.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
I have the drawings. Finished them up.
All right.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
ready to go.
I cannot wait to build this. So, you think it's possible?
Absolutely, looks good.
So it's, you know, we talked about it being a desk with that comes out of a coffee table, and so I put dimensions and things, and I know that's gonna change, but
Yeah, I think it looks great. Nice drawing.
oh, good, cool.
Very cool.
All right, well,
Cool.